Jose Acuna Valenzuela, 11 years on death row. In 2014, he was found guilty of killing 24-year-old Edgar Sigala in 2011 while he and his lady friend were leaving an ice cream shop in Phoenix at 75th Avenue and Indian School Road. John Allen, 8 years on death row. In November 2017, John Allen was found guilty of killing 10-year-old Amy Deal in Phoenix in 2011. 4 family members, including Allen, were accused of punishing the child by making her work out in the blazing July heat and then confining her overnight in a 31-inch-long footlocker. Samantha, Allen's then wife, received a death sentence as well. Frank Anderson, 27 years on death row. In 1998, Anderson was found guilty of committing 3 murders in Mohave County in 1996. The deaths of Lita Kagan, 39, her son, 15-year-old Robert Delahunt, and Roland Weir, 50, were attributed to him and Robert Poison. Poison received a death sentence as well. Wendy Andriano, 21 years on death row. She was found guilty in 2004 of killing her husband, Joe Andriano, in 2000 by stabbing him after he had been bludgeoned by a bar stool while suffering from cancer. Shad Armstrong, 25 years on death row. Armstrong was found guilty in 2000 of killing his sister and her fiancé after she planned to surrender to the police for a burglary she and her siblings committed in 1996. Patrick Barrop, 18 years on death row. Barrop was found guilty in 2007 of beating and killing Mark Mates in 2002. Along with Sean Gaines, Jeremy Johnson, and Jessica Nelson, Barrop assisted in beating, shooting, and hurling Mates off a cliff in the isolated Crown King neighborhood north of Phoenix. Nelson suspected Mates of taking money from her while they were living together at the time of the murder. Gaines, Barrop, and Johnson conspired to take care of this matter when she begged them for help. Trent Benson, 14 years on death row. The killings of 2 Mesa sex workers in 2004 and 2007 led to Benson's 2011 conviction. He abandoned them at the side of the road after beating them both to death. Steve Boggs, 20 years on death row. Boggs was found guilty in 2005 of killing Beatriz Alvarado, 31, Kenneth Brown, 27, and Fausto Jimenez, 30, in May 2002. Boggs and Christopher Hargrave robbed a Mesa Jack-in-the-Box. Hargrave had been let go a month prior. Before escaping with cash stolen from the victims and registers, they pushed 3 workers into a cooler and shot them multiple times in the back. Hargrave received a death sentence as well. Eric Boyston, 16 years on death row. Boyston was found guilty in 2009 of the stabbing deaths of family friend Timothy Wright and the February 2004 killings of his grandmother, Mary Boyston, and his uncle, Alexander Boyston, whom he stabbed. During the outburst, he also shot and injured his great-aunt and an ex-girlfriend. Jonathan Burns, 15 years on death row. Burns was found guilty in 2010 of essaying and killing Jacqueline Jackie Hartman in 2007. Her body was abandoned in the desert by him. Jason Bush, 14 years on death row. In 2011, Bush was found guilty of killing 29-year-old Raul Junior Flores and his 9-year-old daughter Brisenia Flores in 2009. According to the prosecution, Flores was targeted for narcotics and money to fund anti-immigration actions by border activist Shauna Ford and her accomplices, Jason Bush and Albert Gasiola. Gasiola received life in prison, while Ford and Bush received death sentences. Michael Jonathan Carlson, 13 years on death row. In 2012, Carlson was found guilty of killing 52-year-old Rebecca Lou Lofton and 49-year-old Kenneth Elliman in 2009. Alan Champagne, 8 years on death row. In 2017, Champagne was found guilty of killing Brandy Hoffner and Philmon Tapaha in 2011. Their remains were discovered clothed, mummified, and covered with lime after Champagne buried them in his mother's backyard. Derek Chappell, 18 years on death row. In 2007, Chappell was found guilty of killing his girlfriend's 2-year-old kid at an apartment building in March 2004. Chapel held the von Hinman Shackelford underwater after escorting the toddler to the pool of their condominium building. The boy's body was then left behind as Chapel left. Scott Drake Claiborne, 43 years on death row. In 1982, Claiborne was found guilty of essaying and killing a University of Arizona student he had met at a pub in Tucson in 1980. After strangling her, he stabbed her 3 times in the heart before disposing of her body in an arroyo. Larry Langston, Claiborne's accomplice, entered a guilty plea to murder and was given a life sentence. Benjamin Cota, 16 years on death row. In 2009, Cota was found guilty of killing Guadalupe Zavala, 40, and Victor Martinez, 73, a couple from Peoria who had hired him to renovate their house in December 2003. After waiting for the couple to get home, Cota killed Martinez with a hammer before stabbing and slicing Zavala. He lived in the house for a week after hiding their bodies in a bedroom closet and wrapping them in plastic. Robert Cromwell, 22 years on death row. In 2003, Cromwell was found guilty of killing and essaying his girlfriend's 11-year-old daughter in a house in Phoenix in 2001. Unclothed and with 13 stab wounds to her back, the girl was discovered in the main bedroom. Leroy Cropper, 26 years on death row. In 1999, Cropper was found guilty of stabbing Brent Lumley, a Perryville Corrections officer, because Lumley had knocked over a photograph of Cropper's mother 2 years earlier. Cropper got a narcotics conviction and was serving a year in prison. John Cruz, 20 years on death row. Cruz was found guilty in 2005 of killing a police officer by shooting him in 2003. Cruz fired 5 close-range shots at the officer while trying to avoid capture. Cruz was not allowed to inform jurors that he would not be eligible for parole if he were given a life sentence, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, which sent his case back for a fresh sentencing hearing in 2023. Donald Delahanty, 16 years on death row. In 2009, Delahanty was found guilty of killing Phoenix police officer David Uribe during a traffic check in May 2005. David Detrick, 30 years on death row. In 1995, Detrick was found guilty of killing Elizabeth Souther in 1989. After a botched drug deal infuriated Detrick, he led Souther into the desert where he essayed her and then killed her. Eugene Doer, 29 years on death row. In 1996, Doer was found guilty of essaying and killing Karen Bowl in 1994. He said he had no idea what had happened when he called the police to report a deceased woman in his bedroom. Doer was covered with blood, and Bowl was discovered on the floor with cuts to her skull. Charles Ellison, 29 years on death row. Ellison was found guilty in 2002 of the 1999 break-in and killings of Joseph and Lillian Boucher, a couple from Kingman. Richard Finch, Ellison's accomplice, received a life sentence. John Fitzgerald, 15 years on death row. In 2010, Fitzgerald was found guilty of killing his mother, Margaret Larkin, in 2005. As her elderly fiancé watched, he went to her Sun City West residence, stabbed and slashed her with a sword, and then shot her to death with a pistol. Shauna Ford, 14 years on death row. For her part in the May 2009 home invasion deaths of Raul Junior Flores and his 9-year-old daughter Brisenia Flores in southern Arizona, Ford was found guilty in 2011. Ford, a border activist, and accomplices Jason Bush and Albert Gaxiola, according to the prosecution, targeted Flores for money and drugs to support anti-immigration efforts. Mike Gallardo, 16 years on death row. He was found guilty in 2009 of killing 20-year-old college student Rudy Padilla in 2005. Police said that during a break-in, Gallardo tied Padilla's hands and feet, covered his head with a pillowcase, and then shot him in the head. Michael Stephen Gallegos, 34 years on death row. He was found guilty in 1991 of the essay and killing of Kendall Wishon, Gallegos' brother George Anthony Smallwood's half-sister, in March 1990. When Smallwood and Gallegos made the decision to essay Wishon, they were living at Smallwood's mother's house. Wishan's body was then disposed of by Gallegos and Smallwood beneath a tree across the street from the Smallwood home. Smallwood's charges were dropped. Alfredo Garcia, 18 years on death row. Garcia was found guilty in 2007 of helping to kill Steve Johnson, a bar owner in Phoenix in 2002, while he was refilling an ATM. Ruben Garza, 21 years on death row. In 2004, he was found guilty of killing Ellen Franco, his uncle's estranged wife, and Lance Rush, one of her companions, in December 1999. Fabio Gomez, 24 years on death row. In 2001, Gomez was found guilty of killing and essaying Joan Moraine, a neighbor, in 1999. Gomez left Moraine's body in a garbage can in an apartment building after striking her in the skull more than 18 times with a metal dumbbell. Ernest Gonzalez, 34 years on death row. He was found guilty in 1991 of Darrell Wagner's murder in February 1990. Gonzalez had broken into their Phoenix townhouse when Wagner, his wife, and their 7-year-old kid arrived. Gonzalez killed Wagner by stabbing him. Mark Goodall, 18 years on death row. The baseline killer, Mark Goodall, was found guilty of 84 offenses involving 33 victims after 2 trials in 2007 and 2011. Goodall killed at least 8 women and robbed or essayed a number of others. Vincent Guarino, 12 years on death row. Guarino was found guilty in 2013 of kidnapping and killing Chad Rowe in March 2010 while attempting to join a white supremacist group. Tracy Hampton, 23 years on death row. Hampton was found guilty in 2002 of killing Charles Findley and Tanya Ramsdell, a couple from Phoenix, in 2001. When Ramsdell passed away, she was 5 months pregnant. Rodney Hardy, 16 years on death row. In 2009, Hardy was found guilty of the 2005 shooting killings at a Tempe apartment complex of Tiffany Lean and her lover, Don Stansiel. Before she left him a few days before the killings, Hardy and Lean had been dating and living together for over 2 years. Christopher Hargrave, 19 years on death row. In 2006, Hargrave was found guilty of killing Beatriz Alvarado, 31, Kenneth Brown, 27, and Fausto Jimenez, 30, in May 2002. Steve Boggs and Hargrave robbed a mess at Jack in the Box. Hargrave had been let go a month prior. Before escaping with cash stolen from the victims and registers, they pushed 3 workers into a cooler and shot them multiple times in the back. Robert Hernandez, 15 years on death row. In 2010, he was found guilty of killing Jenny Sanchez Rivera, Omar Guzman Diaz, and Pablo Guzman Diaz in Peoria in April 2008. Abel Hidalgo, 10 years on death row. In 2015, he was found guilty of killing Michael Cordova, 35, and Jose Rojas, 38, at a Phoenix auto body shop in January 2001. Court records show that Hidalgo received $1,000 in exchange for killing Cordova. Ruben Johnson, 24 years on death row. In 2001, Johnson was found guilty of the murder of Stephanie Smith, who was scheduled to testify in a previous armed robbery case in which Johnson was an accomplice in November 2000. James Johnson, 9 years on death row. In 2016, Johnson was found guilty of the murder of Mesa massage parlor owner Xianghong Huan in December 2010. Danny Jones, 32 years on death row. In 1993, Jones was found guilty of killing Robert Weaver and his 7-year-old daughter, Tisha Weaver, in March 1992. Jones took the man's car and his collection of firearms. Ronnie Joseph, 15 years on death row. In 2010, Joseph was found guilty of the 2004 shooting death of Tamar Brown, the 14-year-old nephew of his fiancée. After an argument at her residence, Joseph shot Brown, her roommate, and his girlfriend. The woman and her roommate made it out alive. Alvy Kyles, 25 years on death row. In 2000, he was found guilty of killing his girlfriend, Valerie Gunnell, and her kids in February 1989. Lucretia, age 9, and Shemia, age 5, were slain by him after he bludgeoned Gunnell to death because they were screaming and hollering while he killed their mother. Chad Lee, 31 years on death row. In 1994, Lee was found guilty of robbing, essaying, and killing Linda Reynolds, a pizza delivery worker, in 1992. 9 days after killing Reynolds, he was also found guilty of robbing and killing taxi driver David Lacey. Because of his unique order for a huge Hawaiian pizza, police were able to locate him. Darrell Lee, 32 years on death row. In 1993, Lee was found guilty of robbing and killing John Anderson, a Phoenix resident, in 1991, along with Karen Thompson, an accomplice. The two drove Anderson to La Paz County, where Thompson struck Anderson in the head and Lee strangled him after attempting to kill him with car exhaust. Thompson received a sentence of life in prison. Scott Lair, 28 years on death row. In 1997, he was found guilty of several female homicides and essays. Lair, also known as the babysit rapist, gave rides to ladies in a late model Chevrolet with a baby seat in the rear. Lair essayed them while driving them to isolated parts of the desert. Their heads were smashed and 3 perished. 7 more, ranging in age from 10 to 47, were either released or left for dead, bloody and beaten. Lair was placed on death row in connection with the killings of Michelle Morales, 19, in February 1992, Belinda Cronin, 21, in January 1992, and Margaret Christoph, 40, in October 1991. Andrei Litiv, 13 years on death row. In 2012, he was found guilty of shooting and killing his 5-year-old son Alec and his 1-year-old son Asher in March 2010. Litiv then attempted by shooting himself in the face. According to the prosecution, he carried out the ultimate act of revenge against his ex-wife. Jamari Manuel, 16 years on death row. In 2009, he was found guilty of killing Phoenix pawn shop owner Darrell Wilford in Wilford's establishment in 2004. Gilbert Martinez, 15 years on death row. In 2010, he was found guilty of killing Vern Jark in 2006. Betty and Laurel Liedtke's Sun City home was being broken into by Martinez and Robert Arboleda, while their daughters and spouses, including Jark, were there. Martinez was convicted of a number of other crimes as well. Arboleda received a life sentence. Edward McCauley, 6 years on death row. In 2019, he was found guilty of killing his estranged wife in 2014. McCauley left Dawn McCauley's body in the cab of her truck after stalking her and shooting her. Detectives later discovered a journal inside Edward's home that revealed his plans to murder her. Frank McRae, 20 years on death row. In 2005, he was found guilty of killing Justine Tina Cummins at her Phoenix apartment in 1987 after she was essayed, battered, and strangled. Efren Medina, 30 years on death row. In 1995, he was found guilty of killing 71-year-old Carl Hodge, a former reporter for the Arizona Republic, in 1993. Hodge was run over by Medina and Ernest Arrow after they dragged him out of his car and into the street. Ernest Arrow received a life sentence. Brian Miller, 2 years on death row. In the well-known case known as the Canal Killings, Miller was found guilty in June 2023 of killing 2 young women, Melanie Bernas and Angela Brosso, in the early 1990s. Miller was found guilty of killing the 2 women 10 months apart. Bernas, a 17-year-old high school student, in September of 1993, and Brosso on the eve of her 22nd birthday in November 1992. When they were attacked, both young women were riding their bikes along the canals in Phoenix. After being severely stabbed in the back, they were both mutilated and subjected to assay. William Miller, 14 years on death row. In 2011, Miller was found guilty of killing 5 people in February 2006. Former employees of Miller, Stephen Duffy and Tammy Lovell, Duffy's brother Shane Duffy, who was 18, and Lovell's children Jacob 10 and Cassandra 15. In a Scottsdale arson case, Stephen Duffy and Tammy Lovell were set to testify against Miller. Christopher Montoya, 3 years on death row. In 2022, Montoya was found guilty of Abigail Rinaldi's murder from October 2017. Julius Moore, 18 years on death row. In 2002, he was found guilty of killing Delia Ramos, Sergio Mata, and Ramos's brother, Guadalupe Ramos, in 1999. The shooting caused significant injuries to another woman as well. Corey Morris, 20 years on death row. Morris was found guilty in 2005 of the murders of Julie Castillo, Sharon Noah, Jade Velasquez, Barbara Codman, and Shanteria Davis. Prosecutors claimed Morris defiled the bodies after the victims died, and he strangled each lady while they were having relations in his camper van. Israel Naranjo, 14 years on death row. In 2011, Naranjo was found guilty of killing his girlfriend, Delia Rivera, and their unborn child in 2007. Rivera was stabbed 12 times by Naranjo. Brad Nelson, 16 years on death row. Nelson was found guilty in 2009 of killing and abusing his 14-year-old niece, Amber Lynn Graff, in 2006. Nelson purchased a rubber mallet while tending to Graff and her brother at a motel in Kingman, where she bludgeoned Graff while her brother slept. Stephen Newell, 21 years on death row. In 2004, Newell was found guilty of killing and attempting to essay 8-year-old Elizabeth Bird in 2001. Before disposing of her body in a ditch, he strangled her. Scott Nordstrom, 27 years on death row. Thomas Hardman, 28, Carol Lynn Noel, 50, Clarence Odell, 47, Arthur Bell, 54, his wife Judy Bell, 46, and Mary Beth Munn, 53, were among the individuals Nordstrom was found guilty of killing in 2 robberies in Tucson in 1996. Robert Jones, Nordstrom's accomplice, was also given a death sentence, and he was put to death in 2013. Manuel Ovante, 15 years on death row. In 2010, Ovante was found guilty of killing Jordan Trujillo and Damian Vickers in June 2008. Richard Ford, Nathan Duran, George Rojas, and Ovante searched Trujillo's house for drugs, but they were unsuccessful in finding any. Gabriel Valenzuela, a third individual, was shot as well, but he lived. Darrell Pandelli, 28 years on death row. In 1997, he was found guilty of Holly Iller's 1993 murder. He disfigured Iller's body and cut her throat. Later on, Pandelli admitted to killing Holly Humphreys over a year before Iller's murder. Because he killed Humphreys, he was found guilty of second-degree murder. For killing Iller, he received a death sentence, although it was later overturned. In a 2006 sentencing hearing, he received another death sentence. The Arizona Supreme Court upheld the death penalty in 2017, however that decision was overturned due to claims that Pandelli's attorney handled the case in an incompetent manner. He is still on death row. Stephen Parker, 15 years on death row. Parker was found guilty in 2010 of killing Wayne Smith and his partner Faye, his next-door neighbors, in 2005. In their Phoenix home, the couple was discovered robbed, beaten, and stabbed. Isaiah Patterson, 16 years on death row. In 2009, Patterson was found guilty of killing his 32-year-old girlfriend, Consuelo Parker, in 2006. After a quarrel between the couple and their son, Parker fled outside, where Patterson fatally stabbed her. Christopher Payne, 16 years on death row. In 2009, Payne was found guilty of the 2007 murder and starving deaths of his 2 children, Tyler Payne, age 4, and Ariana Payne, age 3. In February 2007, the girl's decaying body was discovered in a storage locker. The body of the boy was never located. Wayne Prince, 26 years on death row. In 1999, Prince was found guilty of killing his 13-year-old stepdaughter, Cassie Parker, in 1998 after a fight with his then-wife, Christy Parker. Despite her injuries, Christy Parker lived. David Ramirez, 35 years on death row. The 1989 murder of Mary Gortares and her 15-year-old daughter, Candy Gortares, in their Phoenix condominium led to Ramirez's conviction in 1990. At the time, Ramirez was on parole. Stephen Reeves, 14 years on death row. In 2011, Reeves was found guilty of killing 18-year-old Norma Gabriela Contreras in June 2007. Before taking her money, mobile phone, and car, He cut Contreras' throat, beat her with a rock, and strangled her with a stick. Charles Reinhardt, 29 years on death row. In 1996, Reinhardt was found guilty of killing Michael Ellis in 1995. In a botched drug sale in Tucson, Ellis was left as collateral. Charles Nadeau, Reinhardt's friend and collaborator, had his trial ended. Christina George, his collaborator and girlfriend, was accused of unrelated allegations. He is the only one on death row. Thomas Riley, 10 years on death row. Riley was found guilty in 2015 of killing Sean Kelly, a fellow prisoner, in 2008. Riley attempted to get full acceptance in the Aryan Brotherhood by stabbing Kelly 114 times. Dwandarius Robinson, 7 years on death row. In 2018, Robinson was found guilty of killing Shaniqua Hall, his pregnant girlfriend, in 2012. He put Hall in shackles and duct tape, covered her with flammable fluid, and burned her alive. Edward Rose, 15 years on death row. In 2010, Rose was found guilty of killing Phoenix police officer George Cortez Jr. in 2007. Rose shot Cortez twice when Cortez attempted to arrest him for allegedly passing a bogus check at a check-cashing business in West Phoenix. Homer Roseberry, 22 years on death row. Roseberry was found guilty in 2003 of killing Fred Faulkner, a Mary Jane trafficker, in October 2000. Roseberry shot Faulkner, and his body was discovered in the bush near State Route 93. Dontorian Sanders, 11 years on death row. In 2014, Sanders was found guilty of killing Shala Vera, his live-in girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter, in August 2009. Covered in belt scars and bruises, Vera was discovered laying between a bathroom sink and a toilet. John Sansing, 27 years on death row. In 1998, Sansing was found guilty of killing Trudy Calabrese, a church employee who had come to his house to give a food box in February of that year. With the assistance of his wife, Kara Sansing, he essayed, assaulted, and fatally stabbed the woman while his 4 children were there. Kara Sansing received a life sentence. John Sansing was also charged in 2014 with Lucille Johnson's 1991 murder in Utah based on DNA evidence. Ronald Sheckhart, 40 years on death row. In 1985, Sheckhart was found guilty of killing his friend Charla Reagan in March 1984. They traveled to a Holiday Inn in Tucson after Sheckhart informed Reagan that he needed a place to stay. There, Sheckhart choked her, placed a big sock in her mouth, beat her in the face with the gun, and essayed her at gunpoint. Later, he told the local preacher about it. Alan Smith, 7 years on death row. In 2018, Smith, a former juvenile probation officer, was found guilty of Khalil Lawrence's murder in 2014. Lawrence, the 19-year-old mother of their child, was shot and killed by Smith. According to court documents, Lawrence requested child support after the birth of her child. According to authorities, Smith threatened to harm Lawrence if she asked for child support after making it known that he had no interest in the child. Todd Smith, 28 years on death row. Smith was found guilty of killing an elderly couple at Coconino County Campground in 1995. Because Smith had tied a shirt around his hand to give the impression that he had wounded himself, the victims allowed him to enter their trailer. Anthony Spears, 32 years on death row. In 1992, Spears was found guilty of killing his girlfriend. After stealing her money, firearms, and truck, he moved to California and started living with a new girlfriend. Paul Spear, 18 years on death row. Spear and Brian Womble were found guilty in 2007 of killing Aidan Soto in 2002. The two planned to murder 42-year-old Soto. According to reports, Womble shot and murdered Soto and gravely wounded Phoenix resident Enriqueta Soto, 30. Womble and Spear broke into the Soto's flat, according to the police. Believing they could avoid jail time for burglary, the suspects who had previously been jailed for breaking into the same Soto's flat returned to kill the residents. They shot the couple while they were sleeping in their bed with a small child in between them. Womble received a death sentence as well. Christopher Sprites, 31 years on death row. In 1994, Sprites was found guilty of essaying and killing Ruby Reed in Tucson in 1989. Reed would not stop screaming, so Sprites confessed to essaying her and smashing her skull with a rock before abandoning her body in the desert outside the city. Preston Strong, 8 years on death row. In 2017, Strong was found guilty of the 2005 murders of Luis Rios, his best friend, Adrian Heredia, Rios' girlfriend, and Heredia's 4 children, Andreas Crawford, 13, Enrique Bedoya, 12, Inez Newman, 9, and Danny Heredia III, 6. He shot the youngest boy and his best buddy and spent hours suffocating 4 of the victims. Eugene Tucker, 24 years on death row. In 2000, Tucker was found guilty of killing Anne-Marie Merchant, Roscoe Merchant, and Cindy Richards in July 1999. Before shooting Anne-Marie in the head, Tucker had previously dated her and had essayed and beaten her at her apartment. He killed Anne-Marie's brother, Roscoe and Richards, who were dating, with a single gunshot each. Samantha Uriarte, 8 years on death row. In August 2017, Uriarte, previously known as Samantha Ellen, received a death sentence for the 2011 murder of her cousin Amy Deal, 10 years old. 4 family members were accused of punishing the girl by making her perform exercises in the blazing July heat and then confining her overnight in a 31-inch long footlocker. John Allen, Uriarte's then husband, was also given a death sentence. Pete Van Winkle, 16 years on death row. Winkle was found guilty in 2009 of killing fellow prisoner Robert Cotton at Phoenix's 4th Avenue Jail in May 2008. After beating and strangling Cotton, Van Winkle tried to toss him over a railing on the 2nd level. Van Winkle was incarcerated at the time of the murder on suspicion of attempting to murder a man in February 2008. Juan Velasquez, 21 years on death row. In 2004, Velasquez was found guilty of killing 20-month-old Liana Sandoval, the daughter of his live-in partner, Virginia Venegas, in 2001. Her body was discovered in a cement block weighted canal. Venegas was also found guilty and given a sentence ranging from 35 years to life. Theodore Washington, 37 years on death row. In 1988, Washington, Fred Robinson, and Jimmy Mathers were found guilty of Sterling Hill's 1987 murder. Robinson's girlfriend's parents, Sterling and Ralph Hill, lived in Yuma. The 3 broke in and shot them both in the head. However, Ralph Hill lived. All 3 received death sentences, but Mathers and Robinson's conviction were reversed after an appeal. Brian Womble, 18 years on death row. In 2007, Womble and Paul Spear were found guilty of killing Aidan Soto in 2002. Womble and Spear plotted the murder of 42-year-old Soto, and Womble shot and murdered Soto and gravely wounded Phoenix resident Enriqueta Soto. Michael Appelt, 35 years on death row. Appelt and his brother Rudy were found guilty of killing Michael Monkman's wife Cynthia in the desert close to Apache Junction in 1990. This was just one day after Michael purchased a $400,000 life insurance policy for his wife. A judge in Maricopa County Superior Court declared Rudy Appelt intellectually incompetent and released him from Arizona's execution row in May 2009. Richard Jerf, 30 years on death row. He was found guilty of killing a family of 4 in Phoenix in 1993. He thought his home had been broken into by a member of that family. Richard Greenway, 36 years on death row. In 1989, Greenway was found guilty of killing Lily Champagne and her 17-year-old daughter Mindy in March 1988 after they had seen his face during a Tucson home invasion. Champagne's Porsche was among the items that Greenway and Christopher Lincoln, a young accomplice, later stole. David Goldbranson, 33 years on death row. In 1992, he was found guilty of torturing and killing 45-year-old Irene Katura in 1991 after she broke up with him. Aaron Gunches, 18 years on death row. For the 2002 murder of Ted Price, the ex-husband of Gunches' then-girlfriend, Gunches was found guilty in 2004. Price was abducted and repeatedly shot in a desert off the Beeline Highway. Charles Headland, 33 years on death row. Headland was found guilty in 1992 of killing James McLean, 65, and Christine Mertens, 40, during two separate burglaries in Chandler in 1991. James McKinney, Headland's accomplice and half-brother, was also found guilty and given the death penalty. Richard Hurls, 31 years on death row. Hurls was found guilty in 1994 of the 1992 essay and killing of Buckeye Public Library librarian Kay Blanton. George Kyer, 28 years on death row. After taking out a loan from Delbert Haas and gambling it away in Laughlin, Nevada, Kyer was found guilty in 1997 of killing Haas in the vicinity of Kingman in 1994. In 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the previous appeals court ruling and reinstated his death sentence. Eric Mann, 30 years on death row. In 1995, Mann was found guilty of killing Richard Alberts and Raymond Bazurto in 1989 during a narcotics ripoff in Pima County and disposing of their remains in Graham County. The murders went unresolved until Mann's girlfriend admitted to state of Washington officials that she saw the killings. Ernesto Martinez, 27 years on death row. Martinez was found guilty in 1998 of killing Robert Martin, a trooper with the Arizona Department of Public Safety, in 1995 after he stopped him during a traffic check. Martinez escaped to California after the shooting, where he ran out of gas and looted a minimart in Blythe, California, where he shot Indian immigrant cashier Randip Singh. In 2018, he was given a life sentence for killing Singh. Leroy McGill, 21 years on death row. In 2004, McGill was found guilty of killing his roommate, Charles Perez, and his girlfriend, Nova Banta, in 2002. After dousing the couple in gasoline, McGill set them ablaze. Later, Perez's burns claimed his life. Because of the extent of Banta's burns, medical professionals had to put her in a medically induced coma to preserve her life. James McKinney, 32 years on death row. For the 1991 murders of James McLean, 65, and Christine Mertens, 40, during two separate burglaries in Chandler, McKinney was found guilty in 1993. Charles Headland, as well as his half-brother, were also found guilty and given the death penalty. Roger Murray, 33 years on death row. In 1992, Roger Murray was found guilty alongside his brother Robert Murray of killing Dean Morrison and Jacqueline Applehans in Grasshopper Junction in 1991. Both the couple's house and the store they operated nearby were broken into by the brothers. Robert passed away in jail in 2014. Robert Poison, 27 years on death row. In 1998, Poison was found guilty of committing 3 murders in Mojave County in 1996. The deaths of Lita Kagan, 39, her son, 15-year-old Robert Delahunt, and Roland Ware, 50, were attributed to him and Frank Anderson. Anderson received a death sentence as well. Pete Rogowich, 31 years on death row. In 1994, he was found guilty of killing Teckleberhan Manna, 24, Phyllis Mancuso, 62, Rebecca Carrion, 48, and Marie Pendergast, 83, in March 1992. Following Manna's shooting at a Superstop Food Mart, Rogovich proceeded to the Palo Verde trailer park where he killed Mancuso, Pendergast, and Carrion. He robbed the Circle K and stole a van. After a chase, he was captured. Sean Running Eagle, 37 years on death row. Eagle was found guilty in 1988 of killing Jacqueline and Herbert Williams in 1997. As Running Eagle and his cousin Corey Tilden tried to steal car parts, the elderly couple approached them. 2 life sentences were imposed on Tilden. Eldon Schertz, 35 years on death row. In 1990, Schertz was found guilty of killing Jonathan Bache in 1989. After fighting with Bache outside the motel in Phoenix, Schertz, Patrick Allison, and others doused the man with gasoline and set him on fire. Bache lived for 4.5 hours after suffering burns to almost 90% of his body. He survived long enough to tell the authorities what happened. Allison was placed on probation after entering a guilty plea and testified against Schertz. Roger Scott, 35 years on death row. Along with Deborah Jean Milkey and James Stiers, Scott was found guilty in 1990 of killing Milkey's 4-year-old son Christopher in 1989. Stiers shot and killed the boy when they went to the desert. All three received death sentences. However, in 2013, Milkey's conviction was reversed and she was freed after more than 20 years in prison. Joseph Smith, 21 years on death row. Smith was found guilty of killing 2 adolescent females he had picked up while they were hitchhiking in Maricopa County in 1975. Smith strapped their lips tight and shoved dirt into their nostrils and mouths, causing both teenagers to suffocate to death. He also repeatedly stabbed each girl. James Stiers, 35 years on death row. Along with Deborah Jean Milkey and Roger Mark Scott, Stiers was found guilty in 1990 of killing Milkey's 4-year-old son Christopher. Robert Walden, 33 years on death row. In 1992, Walden was found guilty of essaying and killing Miguela Burhans in her Tucson apartment in 1991. Additionally, he admitted to the murder of Deneen Brewer Domet but was not charged with it, and in 1990 he beat and killed Nola Jean Knight. He was connected to several other essays. Ronald Williams, 41 years on death row. In 1984, Williams was found guilty of shooting and killing John Bunchek in March 1981 after he saw him break into a house in Scottsdale. Williams was serving a life sentence after being found guilty of shooting a police officer in 1975 when he broke out of a prison in West Virginia in 1979. Williams killed a state trooper who was not on duty at the breakout. 3 months after the Bunchak murder, he was apprehended and detained in West Virginia until 1995. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.